Daniel, thank you so much for being here. What did you recently discover through your experiment on GenAI's impact on knowledge workers?
Thanks for having me. So we ran a huge controlled study looking at our own consultants and comparing them to a benchmark set by our expert data scientists. Some of those consultants we gave generative AI tools, and some of them we didn't. And we gave them a series of tasks that were actually outside of their skill set and outside of the skill set of generative AI. And what we found was actually those consultants that were given these tools were able to reach 86% of the benchmark set by the data scientists, which is a 49 percentage point improvement over those data scientists, which were not given those tools, which shows us that we can actually expand the skill set of our knowledge workers, which is amazing. And they were also able to accomplish it 10% faster than our data scientists, which is just really interesting to see that they're able to actually get so much done in this realm that is completely beyond what we would expect from them.
And so what is the difference between using Gen AI to complete tasks versus learning new skills? And then also, how does that impact the workforce?
Another great question. So we have seen in this experiment that even though these consultants were able to do so much more, to accomplish more than that we would usually expect of them, when we gave them the questions about those tasks immediately after the experiment, it was clear they did not retain that knowledge. And while this was not designed to teach them those things, and they were given a very constrained time period to accomplish these tasks, what we see is an effect that's much more like putting on an exoskeleton, right? So these consultants were able to really power through tasks beyond what they would be able to do. But again, putting those tools down meant that they did not retain that. So it is important for us to understand that while incredibly impactful, if we're trying to upskill our teams more permanently, then we really need to be looking at how we arm them with tools that are designed for that purpose.
What are the risks when professionals use Gen AI for tasks outside their usual skill set?
Great question. So before we actually started this experiment, we asked our consultants what they thought generative AI was capable of doing. Could it do A, B, or C? And then we asked actually the same question after the experiment. And what we found is that regardless of whether they worked with generative AI tools during that experiment, they couldn't discern whether generative AI could accomplish A, B, or C, which tells us that there's a risk of over-reliance on the technology. People don't really understand what it can do. And so it is absolutely critical that we have experts like those data scientists embedded in our teams to make sure that we're coming out with the right insights, the right findings, the right outcomes.
And based on your findings, what should business leaders be doing differently?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So first off, this really does open up the talent pool. So before, especially something like data science, where we have a really constrained talent pool, we should be looking further afield, right? Maybe not looking based solely on resume, but interviewing with generative AI, trying to get a sense for what people could be capable of doing when augmented with technology. And the second thing is that even for workers, we should really maybe encourage them to expand or explore opportunities outside where they normally would have looked, right? If that analytical task they maybe thought was out of reach, perhaps it's actually something they could take on now. And then finally, something that we were really surprised to see is that when we looked at the performance of our consultants, those that knew how to code, that learned how to code at some point, were actually much more effective at accomplishing the tasks, regardless of whether those tasks required coding, which is crazy. And to us, it says maybe there's something in the engineering mindset that they had to learn how to code in terms of breaking problems down into the logical building blocks and then thinking through those that helps them work with this technology to get to the right outcomes. And so perhaps there's something for us as leaders in terms of ensuring that our teams have the right foundational skills. There's a lot of talk about writing code as being a useless skill or coding being dead. I'd argue, from this experiment, we can see that maybe that's not right. Maybe there is some real value, even if the syntax changes, in investing into that real foundational skill. And if people ask you, what should your kids study? Maybe coding is still a really good answer for them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.